Jim Williams has appeared on our show. We have been able to go to those who have been behind the scenes with all the talk about media deals and contracts and facilities, broadcast and others. And Jim Williams back with us on 365 Sports. He's written another article in Forbes and Zinger on Jim Nantz stepping away from the March Madness as they hit the Final Four this weekend in the city of Houston. Jim, thanks for your time. Your article on Jim Nantz, and you brought this up to me late last week, and it's like it's almost hard, not like Madden had to leave and Summerall had to leave, and there's others. And isn't Jim Nantz in that category among the greatest ones?
I think so from a play-by-play standpoint. One of the things that Jim did, and, he came from the Ray Scott and Frank Chikinian, Pat Summerall, less is more play-by-play school. And I think, he's always understated. He never, oversells anything. And I think that's what makes him what he is, which is actually just an incredibly nice guy who does a very good job of play-by-play. And you know yourself, Smokey, because you've done it, it's not an easy thing to do.
There's a certain style, and I think now we have almost like too much over like yelling and screaming during a broadcast, and I get myself caught up in that. I'm not by any means in any shape or form comparing myself to what Jim Nantz does at a national level. But to walk away from that, you have the March Madness, the Masters in the NFL. Isn't like that the triple crown of broadcasting?
It would be for me. I know that Jim, it was a quick turnaround because he would do the Monday night national championship game, and then he would go directly to Augusta, where, of course, on Wednesday they would start practice, and Thursday, the tournament would begin. So it's a quick turnaround. I think at the end of the day, he and Courtney just bought a house in Nashville, and I think he just wants to spend time, with the family. And when you end the football season basically in February, and then, basically you're back at it in March because he does tournament games and then does the NCAA tournament, you really don't have a lot of time. And I think that he just said, you know what, 32 years of doing this, I can walk away from it, and it's not gonna, I think he'll miss it. I don't think that's something that he won't do, but I think he'll miss it. But I think that, as I said before, he's got some young kids, and I think he really wants to be there for them.
Jim, have they made the decision? Is it Ian Eagle that'll take over, or Harlan, or whoever? Who is it?
Ian Eagle is going to get the job. Ian's a great guy, super announcer. I love Kevin Harlan.
Yeah.
But he works for TNT, so we'll see. No, and he works on some stuff for CBS. But no, it's going to be Ian, and Ian's a great guy, and he'll do well. We all know, you've heard him. So basically, he's good. Here's the funny thing, guys. Jim walking away from this before Raph is to me, it's hilarious. I used to work with Raph long ago, and I'm thinking, my God, he must be 170 years old. I have no idea.
He's my age. He's 63. Nantz.
Oh, Nantz is. Yeah, but no, I thought you were going to tell.
No.
No, there's no way that Rafferty is that age. But no, I Jim has decided. As I said before, he wants to take some time, and he's still going to be with Tony doing the football, and he'll still be the golf guy, but. Ian will take over the duties of calling the March Madness in the Final Four, and of course the national championship game.
Jim, since the last time we had you on, and you become more out on Twitter about a lot of your opinions, you've learned that Brigham Young and Utah is a hell of a rivalry, haven't you?
We talked for 17 minutes last week. And 30 seconds of an answer, I think it was with Craig, of a question. When you start asking me about BYU and Utah, I'm going to have to prepare a statement. Because because I'm not gonna wing it anymore. That one was. Let me just put it this way: they are very passionate about their fans out there, and I'll leave it at that. And by the way, Jim used to call BYU football.
I saw that note on your tees. I did not know that. I had no idea that he once did Brigham. I knew he was obviously University of Houston graduate. I did not know about the Brigham Young connection.
He was the weekend guy at KSL, and he did the Utah Jazz with Hot Rod Hundley, and he did BYU football.
So
before he went to CBS.
You get a lot of questions on the Pac-12, obviously. Not really anything has changed whatsoever. There are still thoughts about what it might be or not be, and maybe a few more people have talked or whatever. What were your thoughts about Arizona President Robbins and what he said? Did he actually say they weren't leaving? Did he actually say their eyes were at least still searching? What did you get out of all of what he said last week?
He did a great job of straddling the line. I mean, he did what I think any competent president of any school would do, and that is, we want to stay, but, they have to give us a reason, so to speak. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, what he said and what I interpreted it. It was basically a situation saying, for right now, we're fine. But, he left the door open, and he should. I mean, that's basically, you have to make a decision that is best for your institution. And if that means sticking with the Pac-12 because everything is cool, then that's great. If that means you got to leave because, it's in the best interest of your university to do that, then you got to do that too. And so, I think that's where he played that role was, to use your point, he left, I think, the door not wide open, but certainly ajar.
Jim, since then, we've had a lot of there's been less talk and noise, and this thing seems to go in phases. Is that good for the Pac-12 that they kind of had this brief period of like throwing stuff against the wall, and now they can go back and see what they all like? Or what do you make of everything that came out in the last couple weeks, and now we've kind of gone through some radio silence?
I think silence is not a bad thing in this case. I think that they want to sit down and talk about their partners. I've seen some wild rumors out there that ESPN was offering like $9 million per school, like a $90 million package for 2 games. One was supposed to be, I guess, the Pac-12 After Dark, and the other one was going to be on ESPN Plus. I have seen absolutely nothing that would corroborate that. So those people out there who are, saying it, if they might be the only people in the world that have that information, because it's nobody credible. And I'm not saying that these people aren't credible in what they do, but no credible sources said that. And so until somebody says it, and until it's being an offer, it's not an offer. And we're going to see the offer, and we're going to see it in total. And we're going to see if the president of Arizona and Arizona State like it. And same thing for Colorado and for Utah. So it's, again, to get to your point on that, I don't think radio silence is a bad thing when you're going through negotiations, because noise doesn't help.
Jim, San Diego State, they've obviously been talked about widely as a potential expansion candidate, not just the Pac-12, but also the Big 12 and just, I guess, in general. But, I saw, like after they made the Final Four, of like, give them the invite, send them the invite. And, I know a lot of that's just playing around, but what does the type of run that they're on right now, what kind of an impact can that have? I mean, it clearly doesn't just guarantee anything, but for the folks behind the scenes who are thinking about moves and looking into San Diego State, what does the run that they're on right now have, like, bearing-wise, if any at all?
It certainly helps. Yeah, absolutely. And John Wilner, in his column in the Mercury News this morning, was basically saying now would be a good time to put together a Zoom call and make a phone call to San Diego State. So, if John Wilner's calling it, I would definitely follow his suit. I think that you can't string these people along. That's terribly unfair. And so if you, obviously you also don't want to give them an invite right in the middle of a tournament situation like this, because that would be incredibly unfair to the Mountain West, because obviously the Mountain West is going to be, wants to bask in the glory of having a team there, just like Conference USA wants FAU, because FAU's on their way out to the AAC. So these are two programs that are moving on, but gosh, you should let them at least, I'm talking about the conference standpoint. You should let the Mountain West and Conference USA have a little moment of zen there, and then if next Monday you want to make an announcement or Tuesday, that'd be the time to do it.
We had Mark Ziegler from the San Diego Union Tribune on earlier, and he mentioned the city of San Diego. Obviously, it used to be and still might be kind of a pro sports town, but what San Diego State has brought to the table. But even he mentioned that USC and UCLA carried the market in San Diego, and he wasn't sure as far as when it came to a network that San Diego State would move the needle. What is the main strength of what they do bring to the table?
I think they bring a solid sports program that people like you and I and Paul and Craig will watch. And obviously I defer to the writer that you had in from San Diego as to what kind of town San Diego is. But I do think that in many ways, I'll tell you what, it looks to me like they're at the kind of a basketball version of UCF's football program. And, it's kind of like a stock, you buy it on the rise, right? And I think that's it. I think for the Pac, or if the Pac passes or chooses not to take them and they end up in the Big 12, that wouldn't be a bad idea either. I think they're going to be an up-and-coming brand. I think that stadium out there, if you haven't been out there, Snapdragon Stadium is a really cool place. And they're going to keep it rocking. And I think, as I said, that if, when Bowlesby went out and got Cincinnati and the programs he got, three of them, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, were growth stocks, right? You're hoping that they grow over time. BYU was a known commodity. So I think San Diego State is one of those growth stocks, and I think that over time they can be, both in football and certainly in basketball, something that the Pac would be proud of, and as I said, would draw eyeballs from those of us who don't live out there.
What is the biggest misconception about the Pac-12 media deal, in your opinion, or lack of media deal, in your opinion?
That George Kliavkoff screwed this up. Let me just say that commissioners in professional sports work for the owners, and presidents, commissioners of college sports work for presidents. Some presidents move slower, and some institutions move slower than a commissioner may like it. Look at what happened with Warren at the Big Ten, right? He gets the Big Ten, what arguably is the greatest deal in college sports history, and there's enough grousing to make him decide, you know what, I think I'm going to the Chicago Bears. I think did Kliavkoff make mistakes? I'm sure he did. But is he solely responsible for this disaster? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he's got presidents he has to speak to, and if they're not all on the same page, or if they have, different agendas or different ways they want to do things, then it can make his job absolutely a mess.
Which is what happened before with the Big 12, the commissioners they've had. Even Bowlesby had to deal with that. Do you feel like right now Brett Yormark has carte blanche? I know that he has input from people. Don't get me wrong, ADs and presidents, but do you feel like right now he has a honeymoon period that's still there?
Absolutely. But I think that what he did is he was smart enough to know he had a game plan when he came in. Because he knew he had to do something to put his, mark, no pun intended, his mark on the conference. And he did that with the TV deal. He did it with some concepts of, giving an idea of what kind of entertainment and how to kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, spruce up the image of the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And he brought that pizzazz to it. And it's like it's like a Broadway play, right? You want to get the good reviews, and Brett Yormark was getting nothing but good reviews, and he took that and emboldened himself and the conference, and he took a swagger. I mean, the Big 12 now has a swagger, and it's because Yormark's personality has that kind of, and that's not a bad thing. It's just he's got that kind of, electricity that excites people. Now, the goal is to continue to keep that excitement going, and there's no reason to believe he can't. But he understands entertainment, and entertainment is making people pay attention to you. And God knows that he's done that, and that's not a bad thing. So good on him, and good for the conference.
And then they just had the announcement last week about the clinics, et cetera, at Rucker Park. The NFL Combine that will be in the Big 12, all the Combine will be at one place in Frisco at the Star. Like today, Baylor had theirs. And every little dollar matters especially in a conference that's not at the high level of the Big Ten or the SEC. Does everything here just add to the pie that strengthens the Big 12, even if it's, okay, this is $300,000 or this is $5 million for the conference or whatever else? Do you see him kind of just compiling more and more, whatever it might be, money?
He can nickel and dime this to a lot of money. And I could see him, a guy like him could go and help, for instance, bring concerts to Baylor on campus. I mean, he's got the connections in the entertainment world to help the universities in other ways outside of sports. And I think that's, yet another way to tap into it. And I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, $31.7 million is a lot of money. But when your budget is twice that, then, you realize that you have to make more money. And I think anything, like you said, marketing, any kind of promotion, anything that they can do to keep the Big 12 up there. Right now, the Big 12 arguably is solid in the number 3 spot behind the SEC and the Big 10. I would, the buzz that the Big 12's putting out is a whole lot more than the ACC's putting out.
Jim, the time continues, and we don't know when, if there's ever going to be. There has to be eventually something that the Pac-12 is at least the presidents have in front of them. Do you feel like that, as like last week or the week before, there was this surge of hearing from various presidents in the Pac-12, and there were even thoughts about there would be something next Tuesday or Wednesday in a CEO meeting or this or that? Do you feel like some of that last week, did it was a disappointing that there was no news, or do you just feel like that was exaggerated?
I think somewhere in between. I think what happened is that I think they've got a general idea of a number, okay, and a general idea of a deal. But that may not be what one or two of them, like. So there's probably some tweaking going on. We know it's going to be a predominantly streaming deal. I mean, that's no secret. So, I think what they're trying to do is trying to refine it to figure out where they are, because once it comes out, it's out. And so I do think that I don't think the presidents would have of Arizona and Arizona State and some of the, the potential schools that may or may not leave, right, would go as boldly out there as they did without some sort of knowledge of what a number is and at least the framework of the deal.
And yet and yet there was still, we need to see the number. It was kind of like covering their,
Well, yeah.
you know what? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, what if, let's just play this out for just a second. Let's say the number's 28. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, just pick that number. It's less than obviously 31. I wasn't a math major, but I could figure that one out. So you go there, and so it's not what the Big 12 is offering, and it's streaming more than he wanted. But at the end of the day, he's convinced that maybe this isn't so bad. So we are not going to change conferences right now. So he has to have something, and I'm talking now about the president, he being the president of Arizona, has to have some cover there. I need to see the number. Okay, the number isn't what Big 12 has, but he needs to be able to explain it. And a lot of that's something that deals are done and then they're redone and done over and over and over. And so my guess is they're fine tuning it. They can't possibly be going into May and June without a deal. It's got to come soon. And I do believe they're within range. I think they've got soft numbers, maybe not the hard numbers yet. They've got soft concepts of what the streaming aspect of it's going to look like. Maybe they're just trying to fine tune where are we going to put the games on linear television, and that may be a hang up. So there may be one or two things that's hanging this up, but I can't fathom that this is going to go on for much longer because it just can't. From a standpoint of the PAC has taken a huge, PR pounding, and that affects the president just as much as not having the deal affects him.
If you were one of the presidents and a number came out, would there be a number that made you go gulp, like in the wrong way?
Yeah, anything south of 25.
Okay.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one thing to be within 5 or 6 million, right, of the conference, the Big 12 conference. To be that underestimated or undervalued, or however you want to think of it, would concern me. But fortunately for the people in the Pac-12, and more importantly, the educators in the Pac-12, I am not a president of any of those institutions.
Jim, we appreciate it.
I may not be able to get into those institutions.
Well, I didn't get a letter from Stanford and Cal either.
Jim, there are some places I think they would much rather have you than the person they have.
Yeah.
I'll just say.
Well, you're very kind to say that, Paul. But anyway, no, well, again, it's going to be interesting, guys. And this is a soap opera that I hope ends happily, but, that's up to them.
Jim, thank you very much for your knowledge, experience, and insight. Appreciate it, Jim. Williams wrote the article on Jim Nance at Forbes, Zanger Sports at all.